Las palabras mírate bien. No tienes ni siquiera suficiente dinero miserable para pagar boleto de camión de autobús público que cuesta apenas 10 pesos. ¿Qué demonios estás haciendo caminando por pasillos exclusivos de este hospital privado de clase mundial como si realmente pertenecieras aquí? Como si tuvieras algún derecho legítimo de estar en este espacio reservado para gente de recursos económicos sustanciales. Deberías estar rogando humildemente por atención médica gratuita básica en clínica pública saturada del IMSS donde perteneces en lugar de pretender absurdamente que puedes remotamente permitirte tratamiento en instalación médica de élite ultra exclusiva como esta donde consulta más básica cuesta más que tu salario semanal completo probablemente. Resonaron cruelmente, despiadadamente, deliberadamente humillantes a través del pasillo brillantemente iluminado con luces LED de última generación del tercer piso del Hospital San Rafael. Una de las instituciones médicas privadas absolutamente más prestigiosas, definitivamente más caras y ciertamente más exclusivas de toda Ciudad de México y posiblemente de toda América Latina, ubicado estratégicamente en zona ultraprivilegiada de las Lomas de Chapultepec, donde solamente los residentes más extraordinariamente adinerados de la capital mexicana, ejecutivos corporativos de alto nivel ganando millones anuales, empresarios exitosos, herederos de fortunas familiares, celebridades, políticos corruptos con cuentas bancarias inexplicablemente grandes, podían remotamente permitirse vivir en propiedades que comenzaban en 50 millones de pesos para departamentos modestos y fácilmente excedían 200 millones para casas grandes con jardines y piscinas. El hospital mismo, esta institución médica extraordinaria que era fuente de tanto orgullo para sus propietarios y administradores, era testimonio absolutamente impresionante de exactamente lo que dinero, prácticamente ilimitado combinado con visión arquitectónica ambiciosa y compromiso genuino con excelencia médica, podía crear en términos de instalaciones de healthcare de clase mundial. Edificio moderno espectacular de 8 pisos completos de vidrio arquitectónico especial con propiedades de filtrado UV y acero estructural de alta resistencia, diseñado por firma de arquitectura internacionalmente reconocida Sordo Madaleno Arquitectos, que había ganado múltiples premios por diseño, hospitalario innovador, estructura inaugurada apenas 3 años antes en octubre de 2020, con ceremonia de inauguración masiva, a la que habían asistido Secretario de Salud Federal, Gobernador de Estado de México, Alcalde de Ciudad de México, varios senadores y diputados, representantes de asociaciones médicas nacionales e internacionales, embajadores de varios países cuyos ciudadanos residentes en México utilizarían hospital, todo un despliegue de poder político y económico, celebrando apertura de esta institución. El costo total de construcción había sido absolutamente astronómico, excediendo finalmente 2.300 millones de pesos después de todos los overruns inevitables y cambios de diseño durante construcción de 3 años, cantidad que representaba inversión masiva pero que propietarios habían considerado justificada dado el mercado objetivo de pacientes ultra wealthy, dispuestos a pagar premios sustanciales por atención médica en ambiente de lujo absoluto con tecnología más avanzada disponible globalmente. El edificio estaba equipado literalmente con absolutamente todo el equipo médico más sofisticado y más caro disponible en mercado global sin considerar costo porque filosofía había sido comprar lo mejor sin importar precio. 3 máquinas de resonancia magnética MRI de última generación fabricadas por Siemens modelo Magneton Vida 3T, cada una costando aproximadamente 52 millones de pesos más shipping desde Alemania y instalación por técnicos especializados, quienes habían volado específicamente para calibrar equipos, máquinas capaces de producir imágenes de resolución tan alta que podían detectar tumores minúsculos o anormalidades vasculares que equipo Solder completamente MISET, 2 escáneres de tomografía computarizada CT de alta resolución, Philips Ingenuity Elite, con capacidad para imaging cardíaco avanzado, cada uno valorado en 38 millones de pesos, sistema completo de cirugía robótica Da Vinci C fabricado por Intuitive Surgical, sistema más avanzado para cirugías mínimamente invasivas, utilizado en solo puñado de hospitales en toda América Latina, costando la módica suma de 120 millones de pesos por sistema completo incluyendo console de cirujano, Patient Side Card, con brazos robóticos articulados, Vision Tower con sistema de imaging 3D de alta definición, todo permitiendo a cirujanos realizar procedimientos extraordinariamente precisos a través de incisiones de apenas 1 centímetro, unidad de cuidados intensivos de 20 camas equipada con sistemas de monitoreo continuo más sofisticados fabricados por Philips IntelliView, cada estación de monitoreo costando aproximadamente 800,000 pesos, monitoreando simultáneamente 32 parámetros fisiológicos diferentes en tiempo real con alarmas inteligentes que podían distinguir entre fluctuaciones normales y cambios verdaderamente preocupantes, reduciendo alarm fatigue que plagued older systems. Los laboratorios clínicos estaban equipados con sistemas de análisis automatizado de última generación fabricados por Roche y Abbott, capaces colectivamente de procesar más de 10.000 pruebas diagnósticas diferentes diariamente. Química sanguínea completa, hematología, inmunología, microbiología, genética molecular, toxicología, endocrinología, todo. Con tiempos de turnaround que eran fracción de lo que hospitales older podían lograr. Resultados críticos disponibles literalmente en 30 minutos versus horas o días en instalaciones menos equipadas. Departamento de Imagenología tenía no solamente MRIs y CTs de última generación, sino también sistema de PET-CT híbrido Siemens Biograph para imaging metabólico de cáncer valorado en 110 millones de pesos que combinaba anatomical imaging de CT con functional imaging de PET, permitiendo detección temprana de metástasis. Sistema de mamografía digital 3D con tomosíntesis GE Healthcare Xenographe Pristina, considerado gold standard para breast cancer screening, múltiples máquinas de ultrasonido de alta resolución GE Voluson para imaging obstétrico y general, sistema de angiografía Philips Azurion para imaging vascular durante procedimientos intervencionistas cardíacos y neurológicos. Quirófanos, 12 salas en total distribuidas en 2 pisos, eran obras maestras de diseño de sala de operaciones moderna, cada una equipada con sistemas de filtración de aire HEPA creando ambiente ultralimpio con presión positiva previniendo entrada de contaminantes externos, iluminación quirúrgica LED ajustable proporcionando luz brillante sin sombras necesaria para procedimientos delicados, sistemas integrados de video permitiendo grabación de cirugías para propósitos educativos y legales, booms de techo con múltiples conexiones para equipos médicos eliminando cables en piso que creaban trip hazards, pisos y paredes de materiales antimicrobianos especiales que resistían crecimiento bacteriano, todo diseñado según mejores prácticas internacionales de American College of Surgeons y similares organizaciones. Pero más allá de equipment médico extraordinario, lo que realmente distinguía a Hospital San Rafael de prácticamente todos los otros hospitales en México era atención absolutamente obsesiva a crear ambiente que se sentía genuinamente más como Hotel 5 estrellas de lujo, pensemos Four Seasons o Century Regis, que instalación médica tradicional, porque propietarios habían entendido correctamente que pacientes wealthy, quienes podían elegir dónde recibir atención médica privada, valoraban confort y ambiente casi tanto como competencia médica técnica. Los interiores del hospital habían sido diseñados meticulosamente por firma especializada en diseño de hospitality de lujo llamada Gettys Group, con oficinas en Chicago, que había diseñado interiores para hoteles Ritz-Carlton y residencias ultraluxury globalmente, firma que había sido specifically contracted para traer sensibilidad de diseño de hospitality de lujo a ambiente de healthcare. Resultado era espacio que sistemáticamente subvirtió expectativas típicas de hospital a cada punto de contacto. Pisos de entrada principal y todos los corredores principales no eran linoleum institucional o ceramic tile utilitario, sino mármol calacata importado de canteras específicas en Italia, material idéntico a lo que encontrarías en lobbies de hoteles más caros del mundo, pulido diariamente a brillo espejo por equipo dedicado de personal de mantenimiento trabajando overnight shift para que nunca interrumpieran experiencia de pacientes durante horas de operación normal. Paredes no eran simplemente pintadas en blanco institucional aburrido, sino cubiertas parcialmente hasta altura de 2 metros con paneles de madera genuina de nogal americano, no laminado barato pretendiendo ser madera sino actual solid wood panels, con grain patterns hermosos, finish satinado que invitaba touch, agregando warmth y richness a espacios que otherwise podrían sentirse fríos y clinical. Iluminación throughout era masterclass en lighting design sofisticado, no harsh fluorescent panels institucionales creando sombras duras y causando dolores de cabeza, sino rather carefully layered lighting scheme, combinando indirect LED cove lighting proporcionando ambient iluminación suave, adjustable recessed spotlights, permitiendo control preciso de niveles de luz en diferentes áreas según función, accent lighting, highlighting artwork, en paredes. Todo control por Building Management System permitiendo ajustes automáticos basados en hora del día y niveles de luz natural entrando a través de ventanas grandes. Arte contemporáneo mexicano original colgaba en paredes throughout hospital, no pósters baratos o reproducciones, sino actual original artwork de artistas establecidos y emergentes, pinturas grandes de óleo de Francisco Toledo, valoradas individualmente en 400,000 a 600,000 pesos cada una, esculturas de bronce de Gabriel Orozco en varios locations, fotografías grandes formato de Graciela Iturbide, todo curated por galería de arte profesional contratada específicamente para crear colección que fuera simultaneous y culturalmente relevante, estéticamente pleasing, y apropiada para ambiente de healthcare donde no querías y megorri demasiado disturbing o provocative. Áreas de espera distribuidas throughout hospital habían sido furnished con sillones y sofás tapizados en genuine Italian leather de marca Natuzzi, en lugar de horrible plastic chairs con metal frames que caracterizaban waiting rooms de hospitales públicos, sitting tan comfortable que fácilmente podrías quedarte dormido esperando, arranged en groupings conversacionales en lugar de filas institucionales. Cada grouping tenía side tables de madera maciza con lámparas de mesa proporcionando task lighting para reading. En lugar de vending machines dispensando snacks procesados de baja calidad, había café bar completo en lobby principal staff durante horas de operación por baristas entrenados profesionalmente operando máquina expreso comercial. La Marsocco Laina, mismo equipo usado en cafés specialty de alta gama, preparando capuchinos, lattes americanos, todo usando beans de café de origen único sources desde cooperativas en Oaxaca y Chiapas, completamente gratuito para pacientes y visitors. Concepto siendo que si estabas pasando tiempo stressful en hospital debido a medical situation tuya o de ser querido, al menos podías tener really good coffee para hacer experiencia slightly más bearable. Lobby principal tenía piano de cola Steinway Model D, instrumento valorado en aproximadamente 4 millones de pesos, mismo model usado en Carnegie Hall y otros venues prestigiosos. Posicionado strategically donde pianista profesional contratado para tocar durante horas de visita peak podía ser escuchado throughout ground floor, creando atmosphere tranquilo civilizado con música clásica suave, Chopin nocturnes, Debussy preludes, ocasional Latin American composers como Villa Lobos, que ayudaba más que overhear announcements y otros sounds inevitables de hospital operando. Las habitaciones de pacientes receptors eran genuinely extraordinarias. Habían sido diseñadas deliberately para sentirse como hotel rooms de 5 estrellas con functionality médica integrada discreetly, en lugar de dominating aesthetics. Habitaciones privadas estándar, eran generosas 50 metros cuadrados, enormes por hospital standards, donde habitaciones típicamente eran tal vez 20 metros, con ventanas grandes piso a techo proporcionando natural light y views de ciudad. Camas de hospital eran estado del arte adjustable electric beds de marca alemana Linet, pero dressed con high thread count Egyptian cotton linens de marca Fretti, idénticas a lo que encontrarías en Four Seasons, sintiendo dramatically diferente desde extrachy institutional sheets de hospitales típicos. Cada habitación tenía large flat screen TV de 65 pulgadas montado en wall con full cable package, incluyendo canales premium, acceso completo a Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, otros servicios streaming, sistema soundbar para audio quality decente, remote control user friendly, que incluso elderly patients podían operar sin frustración. Baños privados en cada habitación eran particularly impresible, en lugar de cramped institutional bathrooms con fixtures básicos. Estos eran spacious bathrooms de aproximadamente 10 metros cuadrados con floor-to-ceiling marble tiling, idéntico a luxury hotel bathrooms, walk-in shower con rainfall showerhead, grande más handheld sprayer para flexibility, high-end fixtures de marca Hansgrohe, heated towel racks manteniendo towels warm y cozy, backlit mirrors con lighting perfecto para grooming, todo designed para permitir patients mantener sense de normalcy y dignity durante hospital stay que otherwise era inherently un dignified experience. Cada habitación tenía sitting area con comfortable sofa cama, permitiendo family member quedarse overnight con patients, si deseaban, algo prohibido o dificultado en muchos hospitales pero encouraged aquí porque understood que patients con family support recover better, plus small refrigerator stocked con complementary beverages, jugos, agua embotellada premium, sodas, porque staying hydrated era importante y patients shouldn't tener que call nurse solo para obtener glass de water. Room service de comida era genuinely impressive, no típico hospital food que era universally terrible, sino rather comida preparada por equipo de chefs profesionales trained en culinary school, muchos con experience trabajando en restaurants de alta gama antes de joining hospital, ofreciendo diverse menú con opciones, ranging desde Mexican comfort food tradicional ejecutado excelently, chilaquiles, enchiladas verdes, mole, pozole, a international cuisine, pasta italiana, sushi japonés, pastex, opciones vegetarianas y veganas, everything prepared con fresh ingredients, y genuine culinary skill, tasting como restaurant food, no hospital food, served in proper dinnerware, no plastic trays, available 24/7 para accommodate patients in different schedules, o con dietary needs relacionados a medical conditions. Todo esto, facility, equipment, staffing, services, required, para operate costaba absolutely fortune. Monthly operational expenses exceeded 20 millones de pesos incluyendo salaries para approximately 1,200 empleados, ranging desde specialty physicians, a nurses, a administrative staff, a housekeeping, a security, a cafetería. Workers, utilities para building the 8 floors, con extensive HVAC systems, manteniendo temperature y humidity controlled environments, maintenance de equipment, médico sophisticated, requiring specialized technicians, supplies médicos, ranging desde surgical instruments, a medications, a linens, a food, insurance coverage, administrative overhead, everything. Para cubrir estos operational costs más generate reasonable profit para owners. Para cubrir estos operational costs más generate reasonable profit para owners. Hospital cobraba fees que eran genuinely astronomical por Mexican standards, aunque competitive con private hospitals en US, habitación privada individual sin ningún procedimiento médico actual, solo occupying room overnight, con basic nursing care, costaba 15,000 pesos per night, equivalente a monthly minimum wage en México, cantidad que vasta mayoría de Mexican families couldn't remotamente afford incluso para single night. Consulta básica con médico especialista, solo initial visit donde doctor tomaba history, hacía basic examination, ordenaba tests, costaba starting at 3,500 pesos para especialistas junior, subiendo a 6,000 o más para especialistas senior con años de experience, just para 30-45 minutos de doctor's time. Procedimientos quirúrgicos eran donde costs really escalated dramatically. Cirugía ortopédica relativamente routine como knee arthroscopy, incluyendo surgeon fees, anesthesiologist fees, operating room time, recovery room time, overnight stay, pain medications, physical therapy initial session, everything typically total between 250,000 y 350,000 pesos. Cirugía más complex como total hip replacement fácilmente exceeded 500,000 pesos. Cardiac surgery como bypass could reach $1,000,000 o más. Cancer treatment requiring surgery, plus chemotherapy plus radiation could easily total varios millones de pesos over cost de treatment. Estos numbers eran absolutely prohibitive para vast majority de Mexican population. Según datos de INEGI, median household income en México era approximately 15,000 pesos mensuales, meaning typical family ganaba en entire month less que coste single night en private hospital room, obviously making este tipo de care completely inaccessible except para wealthy minority at top the income distribution, maybe top 5 o 10% de population. That was reality de private healthcare en México. Existed in completely separate universe desde public healthcare system de IMS y ISST que served majority de population, sistemas públicos que eran free or low cost pero que frecuentemente suffer desde overcrowding, outdated equipment, insufficient staffing, long wait times para procedures, all results de insufficient government funding. So places como Hospital San Rafael fundamentally served wealthy elite, people para whom spending 50,000 pesos in hospital visit was annoying, pero manageable expense, no financially catastrophic event, y everyone involved in hospital understood this reality. Qual made particularly striking work often in third floor corridor, este particular morning, el hombre quien había just delivered ese monólogo cruel y extenso designed to humiliate, whose words dripped, con contempt y class-based prejudice, era Dr. Mauricio Enrique Villalobos Santibáñez, orthopedic surgeon de 43 años, quien se especializaba en cirugías de reemplazo de articulaciones principalmente caderas y rodillas, damage por arthritis o injury, y en reparaciones de lesiones deportivas para pacientes typical wealthy, quienes se lastimaban jugando tenis, skiing en Aspen o Whistler, haciendo marathon running, todos los recreational activities que solamente people con considerable tiempo libre y recursos financieros pursued seriously. Dr. Villalobos era graduate de Universidad Panamericana, universidad privada católica de élite ubicada en Mixcoac, que era conocida por educar hijos de México's wealthy families, donde annual tuition cuando él había attended en 1990s había sido approximately 150,000 pesos anuales. Multiplied por 6 years de medical school, resulting in total educational investment de roughly 1 millón de pesos just para undergraduate medical degree, no incluyendo y subsequent fellowship training. Después de completing medical school at UP en 2003, había done surgical residency en orthopedics en Hospital Ángeles del Pedregal, otro private hospital catering a wealthy clientele, donde había trained durante 5 years bajo supervisión de established orthopedic surgeons, learning surgical techniques mientras simultánea su learning culture de private medicine, donde patients were treated como valued customers, porque they were literally paying thousands of dollars out of pocket, o through premium insurance plans para services. Following residency completion, en 2008, había pursued additional specialized fellowship training en sports medicine y joint replacement en Hospital for Special Surgery en New York City, considerado internationally como uno de absolute best orthopedic hospitals in entire world, ranked now globally por orthopedics por US News and World Report year after year, institution donde train some the most skilled orthopedic surgeons globally. Año de fellowship training en New York 2009-2010, había been expensive proposition requiring him to largely self-fund living expenses in Manhattan, mientras working as fellow earning modest stipend, pero family wealth había made this possible sin financial hardship, y credential de having trained at HSS carried enormous prestige within Mexican medical community, open doors to most desirable position at top private hospitals.
Upon returning a Mexico in 2010, había joined the staff de Hospital San Rafael specifically, attracted por their investment in state-of-art equipment, wealthy patient base willing to pay premium fees, collegial environment, the other well-trained physicians, opportunity para maintain private practice performing lucrative surgeries, while also seeing patients in consultorio privado, were charged directly for consultations. Durante 30 years since joining San Rafael in 2010, había built a highly successful practice generating personal annual income que easily exceeded 10 millones de pesos, approximately 800,000 pesos monthly on average, though varied seasonally, coming desde combination de surgical fees typicamente ranging entre 200,000 a 600,000 pesos per surgery, depending on complexity, con typical surgeon's cut being approximately 40% the total surgical bill after hospital, took their percentage for facility uso, más consultation fees desde office visits, donde saw patients in his private office adjacent to hospital, charging 3,000 to 6,000 pesos per visit, depending on whether new patient requiring extensive evaluation versus follow-up visit. Este level de income placed him squarely within top 1% de Mexican income earners, enabling lifestyle de considerable luxury, owned large house de 4 habitaciones con pool in exclusive, gated community in Santa Fe area de ciudad donde property values started at 30 millones de pesos, drove Mercedes-Benz GLA SUV que había costado $1.5 pesos, purchased new desde authorized dealer, sent his children to American School Foundation, one of the most expensive private schools in entire city, where annual tuition per child exceeded 400,000 pesos, took family on international vacations a Europe or US, multiple times yearly, staying in 4 Reciba-star hotels, belonged to exclusive country club con membership fees de 200,000 pesos annually, plus monthly dues, basically lived life the wealthy professional Mexican upper class, y como often occurs con people quien han been financially comfortable entire lives, whose parents were wealthy, quien attended elite schools surrounded por other wealthy people, quien worked in environments serving exclusively wealthy clientele, Dr. Villalobos había developed a somewhat distorted worldview, donde wealthy lifestyle seemed normally deserved, donde people without comparable resources seemed somehow lesser, where class differences were naturalized como reflections de merit, rather than largely results de circumstances de birth y structural inequalities. This morning, Dr. Villalobos vestía exactly como you'd expect successful private physician, atendiendo ultra-wealthy clientele to dress, white physician's coat de marca luxury, hecha desde exceptionally fine Egyptian cotton fabric, no cheap polyester, coat que probably costaba 6,000 pesos desde medical uniform company catering specifically to physicians, quien wanted premium garments, impeccably clean y professionally laundered because sending out para professional laundry service at 20 coats per semana costando 50 pesos each wash era trivial expense barely noticed. Debajo de white coat se podía clearly ver his underlying attire que was equally expensive. Light blue dress shirt desde Italian luxury brand, Hermenegildo Segna, brand known para exceptional fabric quality y craftsmanship. Shirt que retailed aproximadamente 8,000 pesos, made desde cotton tan fine y soft que felt almost like silk against skin, perfectly fitted porque had been tailored specifically para him por tailor specializing in alterations para professionals. Pantalones were charcoal gray dress slacks desde same brand also perfectly tailored, probably otro 10,000 pesos, with crease so sharp podías practically cut yourself in it, maintained mediante professional pressing service. Shoes were Oxfords de cuero italiano genuino, desde luxury brand Salvatore Ferragamo. Classic design and black leather polish to mirror shine, mediante daily attention, desde shoe shine service available in hospital's ground floor lobby, specifically para doctors y other professionals. Shoes que había costado approximately 20,000 pesos, pero que he considered worthwhile investment, porque fueron exceptionally comfortable para long days and feet, durante surgeries y hospital rounds, plus projected image de success y professionalism. In his left wrist, visible each time gestured con hand, were Rolex Submariner watch in combination de stainless steel y 18-karat gold, so-called two-tone version the iconic dive watch that was actually never used para diving, but rather worn purely como status symbol, watch valued at approximately 450,000 pesos, and retail market, purchased as the authorized Rolex dealer in Polanco several years before.
Watch que had actually appreciated somewhat in value since purchase, porque Rolex watches often held value or increased in secondary market, making them not just luxury items, but also quasi-investment pieces. Around his cuello hung stethoscope, not basic model costing 1,000 pesos que medical students y residents used pero rather Littman Cardiology Quarto, top-of-line model manufactured por 3M, specifically para cardiologists, y other specialists requiring highest quality acoustic performance, stethoscope costing approximately 6,000 pesos, subtle detail, pero one that signaled to observant colleagues que invested in quality tools, took profession seriously, had resources to buy best. In his right hand carried latest iPhone 14 Pro Max, an elegant leather case, desde luxury brand, phone valorado at approximately 35,000 pesos, para high storage capacity model, device que he checked constantly throughout day, reviewing surgical schedules, corresponding con colleagues via WhatsApp, checking patient test results through hospital's electronic medical record system, accessible via secure app, managing his busy professional life that required constant connectivity y comunicación. His overall appearance, from hair, que era professionally cut, y styled every 2 weeks at upscale barber shop, charging 800 pesos per haircut, to manicured nails suggesting he actually got regular manicures, which indeed he did monthly at salon, catering to professional men, to subtle cologne, que was niche fragrance brand, costing 3,000 pesos per bottle, everything communicated clearly. Soy successful physician desde wealthy background, treat exclusively wealthy patients, a member de professional upper class, deserve respect y deference accordingly. Y es worldview, y essence de natural superior to bestolarstru en accidents de birth y privileges rather occurrel en merit, informa Dr. Villalobos interacted con world around him, deferencial y professionally charming hacia patients quienes were paying canazunts de pesos para his services, colegial con fellow physicians who consider peers de similar status, formo polite pero somewhat submissive to her nurses y other hospital staff who viewed como subordinates in medical hierarchy, y openly contemptuous toward anyone whom perceived como significantly lower social class, viewing such people como fundamentally no belonging, in spaces reserved para gente bien, cual directly explained what was happening en este corridor en this moment, porque standing frente a June, receiving full force de his class-based contempt, pero lo realmente impactante fue Sofía Mariana Castellanos Vargas, mujer de 28 años recién cumplidos apenas 3 semanas before, quien en este preciso momento stood en hospital corridor wearing ropa que was so genuinely modest, so visibly worn y humble, so completely lacking in any markers de affluence whatsoever, que she appeared to every casual observer to be person de genuinely limited economic means, someone struggling financially, someone para whom even basic necessities represented significant expenses, someone que absolutely didn't belong in elite private hospital catering exclusively to wealthy. Her outfit literally looked like something homeless person might wear, or perhaps factory worker earning minimum wage who couldn't afford to replace aging clothing, jeans que were faded medium blue denim, de brand tan generic que literally no tenía recognizable label visible anywhere, pants que looked like they had been purchased years ago, tal vez at discount department store like Suburbia, o Coppel para maybe 300 pesos o less durante clearance sale, jeans que showed considerable wear particularly at knees, donde fabric había thinned noticeably desde repeated use, at back pockets donde seam had actually torn slightly at one corner, pero había been crudely repaired con simple stitching, at hemo donde bottom edges had frayed, whole garment giving impression de clothing que owner wore constantly because had limited wardrobe options, pants que had been washed so many times que original dark denim color había faded to inconsistent pale blue, que hung somewhat loosely porque weren't perfectly fitted, suggesting they might even be second-hand or borrowed from someone de slightly different size. Camiseta she wore was even more humble, simple plain white t-shirt, the absolutely cheapest variety available, type que come in plastic-wrapped packages de 3 shirts para total cost de maybe 200 pesos at Walmart o Soriana, shirt made desde thin cotton blend fabric que wasn't particularly soft or comfortable pero que was functionally inexpensive, shirt que through repeated washing había taken on slightly grayish cast that white cotton develops after dozens de washes when you're using regular detergent, no expensive color maintaining products, neckline que had stretched slightly loose desde being pulled on overhead repeatedly, whole garment looking thoroughly worn pero clean, type de shirt que someone might wear para doing housework or running errands, absolutely not type de garment anyone would wear deliberately if trying to project any kind of professional image or social status, over t-shirt wore sweatshirt con hood también clearly old y much worn, medium gray color que originally might have been darker pero had faded considerably, small hole visible in cuff the right sleeve donde fabric had worn through entirely creating opening approximately 1 centimeter diameter, left pocket showing slight tear at corner, drawstrings para hood missing entirely having presumably broken off at some earlier point, y never been replaced. Whole garment having that soft worn-in feeling que clothes develop after years de regular use but also looking decidedly shabby, y past their prime type de clothing que person typically wore solo around house or para very casual situations, certainly not para appearing in public in upscale location. And her feet wore sneakers que were perhaps most telling element de her outfit in terms de signaling apparent poverty, generic white athletic shoes de brand so obscure que literally nobody would recognize logo pequeño inside, shoes que had almost certainly been purchased either at Tianguis Street Market para maybe 300 pesos maximum or possibly even second-hand at used clothing market para even less. Shoes que had originally been white pero after months or years their use had become permanently dingy grayish beige color no matter how much they were cleaned, rubber soles showing considerable wear patterns, at one point where sole was actually starting to separate slightly there's the upper part the shoe, creating small gap que would eventually require gluing or replacement, laces que were frayed y discolored, Whole appearance the footwear, que owner wore because literally couldn't afford to replace them, not because liked them or chose them. Shoes que immediately marked wear como person de limited economic means, porque anyone con even modest resources would have replaced such obviously worn-out footwear. Her long dark brown hair, which under different circumstances might have been styled attractively with expensive products y professional cutting, was instead simply pulled back in basic ponytail, secured con ordinary elastic hairband tipo que comen in packages de dozen para 50 pesos at pharmacy, no special hair accessories, no styling evident, huicas practical simple arrangement para keeping hair out the face, hair itself appearing clean pero without any highlights or coloring or professional treatment, huicas natural hair worn simply. Rostro was completely free to any makeup whatsoever, no foundation, no mascara, no lipstick, no blush, no nothing, showing her natural skin, con all its minor imperfections, tiny blemishes, y uneven skin tone que everyone has, pero que makeup typically concealed, presenting completely unadorned appearance, que might have been refreshingly natural, in different context, pero in this setting de elite hospital, donde even nurses typically wore at least minimal makeup as part de professional appearance, absence de any cosmetics, reinforced impression de either someone quien couldn't afford makeup products or someone who didn't care about appearance, both interpretations supporting narrative de poverty. Absolutely no jewelry visible anywhere, no earrings despite having pierced ears visible if you looked closely, no necklace, no bracelet, no rings, no watch, complete absence de any adornments whatsoever, striking because even people de modest means typically wore at least some simple inexpensive jewelry pieces, complete lack de any accessories, suggesting either extreme poverty or deliberate choice to avoid any appearance de having resources. In her shoulder-carried backpack, que completed picture the apparent poverty, worn nylon backpack, in faded black color, type que high school students might use, brand unknown porque any logos had worn off entirely after years de use, zipper que appeared to stick somewhat requiring extra effort to open, one strap showing tear que had been inexpertly repaired con safety pin, creating makeshift fix, whole bag looking thoroughly used, y showing its age, containing presumably her few belongings, maybe phone, wallet, perhaps lunch she had brought desde home porque couldn't afford to buy food, practical utilitarian bag without any style considerations. Her overall appearance, every single element taken together, screamed unmistakably, working class person struggling economically, probably earning somewhere near minimum wage, de aproximadamente 2,000 pesos weekly, if working full-time, probably living paycheck to paycheck, con no savings, probably having to make difficult choices between necessities, someone para whom unexpected expense de even few thousand pesos would represent serious financial crisis, someone who absolutely couldn't afford medical care, an expensive private hospital costing thousands or tens de thousands de pesos, someone who frankly looked to place an elite environment, where patients typically arrived in luxury cars wearing designer clothing. It was precisely this appearance, shabby clothing, worn shoes, cheap backpack, complete absence de any visible markers de affluence, or even basic middle-class comfort, can trigger Dr. Villalobos's contemptuous response when he had noticed her standing quietly in corridor, apparently waiting para someone, and his worldview shaped por lifetime de privilege. People who appeared this poor simply didn't belong in spaces reserved para wealthy, unless they were there providing service, cleaning floors, delivering supplies, perhaps accompanying wealthy employer, como domestic servant. Even then should be inconspicuous, should know their place, should understand implicitly que they were temporary visitors in spaces that weren't really for them. Seeing Sofia standing in corridor, apparently comfortably, not apologetically hiding in corner, but rather occupying space almost como if she belonged there, had offended his sense de proper social order, had prompted him to confront her, initially attempting to simply direct her to leave, but when she had politely declined to leave saying she was waiting para someone, he had right to be there, his irritation had escalated into openly cruel verbal attack, designed to humiliate her into departing. Todo esto, his assumptions, his contempt, his cruel words, based purely in her external appearance, without knowing anything about who she actually was, what her circumstances were, what possible legitimate reason she might have para being in this hospital, which was about to make what happened next even more dramatically satisfying. This interaction había begun aproximadamente 10 minutos before, cuando Sofia had been standing calmly in small waiting area near elevators, and third floor, apparently waiting patiently para someone without bothering anyone, occasionally glancing at her phone, older Android model, several years old based in appearance, clearly not latest expensive iPhone, another detail reinforcing impression de limited resources, just passing time quietly. Dr. Villalobos había exited elevator con dos colleague physicians, con whom he had been discussing complex surgical case during ride-up desde second floor surgical areas, animated conversation about technical aspects de procedure they had just completed, when he had noticed Sofia.
had done obvious visual double take, eyes scanning her appearance desde worn shoes upward, a shabby sweatshirt, expression shifting, desde professional neutrality toward something approaching distaste, had made comment to companions clearly intended para Sofía to overhear despite being directed ostensibly at colleagues. Parece que security está really bajando standards sobre quien permiten enter, si permiten cualquier walk-in desde street. His two companions, younger physicians, probably recent additions to hospital staff based in their evident junior status relative to Dr. Villalobos, quien was senior figure, had laughed uncomfortably, obviously aware comment was inappropriate, pero not wanting to contradict or offend established colleague, quien likely had influence over their own careers within hospital. Sofía had heard comment clearly, porque had been intended para her to hear, had felt familiar anger rising, not first time she had experienced this kind of casual class-based disrespect during her periodic visits to hospitals disguised como working-class person, was actually exact point to these visits, but still stung cada time because revealed ugly truths over how people treated those they perceived como inferior. Pero had maintained composure, had continued standing quietly, had not responded verbally, not wanting to create scene prematurely, still waiting para meeting que was reason para her presence, pero Dr. Villalobos apparently had decided that her presence personally offended him, que she needed to be removed desde space reserved para proper people, había approached directamente, had addressed her con tone mixing condescensión con authority. Disculpa, este piso es specifically para patients y authorized visitors only.
Si estás buscando free clinic o charity care, IMES tiene facilidad several kilómetros desde ER. Toma camión 7 desde stop en corner. You need to exit immediately. Sofía had responded calmly, keeping voice even despite growing irritation. Estoy waiting para someone. I have right to be present here. I'm not violating any rules or bothering anyone. Right? Dr. Villalobos had repeated word almost mockingly, laughing with genuine derision. You have right. Look at yourself seriously. Obviously you're not patient porque couldn't possibly afford even basic consultation here, que cost more than you probably earn in week. Obviously you're not family member the patient porque nobody con resources sufficient para treating themselves here would have family arriving looking like, had gestured dismissively toward her clothing. Like you do. So what exactly, your friend de someone desde cleaning staff? This isn't social area. Leave now, or I'll call security para escorting you out. Sofía had felt that anger burning hotter pero maintained control. Como I said, I'm waiting para someone. There's no rule against being en corridor. I'm not disrupting anything. No estoy molestando a nadie. You're bothering me, Dr. Villalobos had declared arrogantly, volume rising enough que several nurses y other staff members nearby had paused their activities to glance toward obvious confrontation developing. Your presence here is completely inappropriate. This is elite private hospital para people quienes can actually pay for premium medical services. Not homeless shelter, not public waiting room, not place for, had gestured again dismissively, people desde street. He then had delivered his extended cruel monologue sobre not having money para bus, suggesting she seek charity care in public hospitals, deliberately humiliating language designed to shame her into leaving. One of his colleague physicians had murmured weakly, Mauricio perhaps, attempting half-heartedly to moderate situation. Perhaps nothing. Dr. Villalobos had cut him off sharply. We maintain standards here. That's precisely why wealthy families bring patients here in lugar de overcrowded public hospitals full of, had looked directly at Sofía meaningfully, her type de people. If we start permitting anyone to occupy our spaces, soon we'll be no different from IMS. Sofía had been about to finally respond forcefully, to stop playing passive role y confront this pompous bully, cuando sound the elevator arriving, had interrupted moment mechanical ding announcing doors about to open. Doors slid smoothly apart. He stepped out, hombre de approximately 60 años old, wearing expensive-looking business suit, charcoal gray three-piece suit que probably costaba 50,000 pesos desde Italian luxury brand, crisp white shirt, silk tie con subtle pattern, whole appearance screaming authority is success. Clearly person de considerable importance within institution, basándose both en his confident demeanor y an immediate reaction de nearby staff, quien straightened up noticeably al noticing his presence, subtle but unmistakable deference visible in body language. This man era Dr. Fernando Salazar Mendoza, director médico del hospital, essentially chief medical officer, second only to CEO in organizational hierarchy, physician con approximately 33 years de experience across public y private sectors, trained initially at UNAM, had worked years in public health system before transitioning into private hospital administration, widely respected figure dentro Mexican medical community, author de numerous papers sobre hospital administration y healthcare quality, someone whose opinion carried considerable weight. Y critically para what was about to unfold, Dr. Salazar was one the very small number the people dentro entire hospital who knew true identity de Sofía Castellanos, who understood exactly who this woman in shabby clothing really was, who immediately recognized her despite deliberately humble appearance because had seen her multiple times before in various contexts, who felt sudden alarm realizing she had apparently been confronted by someone unaware de her actual role. Dr. Villalobos, he had said con tone carrying clear note de disapproval mixed con concern, walking to our group quickly. ¿Qué está occurring here exactly? Why are you confronting esta young woman? Nothing significant, Director. Dr. Villalobos had responded somewhat dismissively, clearly not particularly concerned about being questioned because felt his actions were justified, simply explaining to this person que private hospital is not appropriate place para her, suggesting strongly que she seek medical attention or whatever she needs in public hospital more suited to her economic level, was about to call security actually to escort her out. Dr. Salazar había looked toward Sofía, recognition flashing clearly in his eyes immediately followed por barely suppressed alarm mixed con something approaching horror. Al realizing what situation was, looked back at Dr. Villalobos, quien remained oblivious, obviously trying to figure out how to handle situation delicately. Dr. Villalobos había begun carefully. I think perhaps permítame introduce you, pero Sofía had raised hand gently, subtle gesture stopping introduction before it began. It's perfectly fine, Dr. Salazar. Appreciate your concern, pero actually creo this will be educational moment para Dr. Villalobos regarding importance de not making assumptions based purely on superficial appearances. Sometimes lessons need to be learned directly, rather than through abstract discussion. Had turned to face Dr. Villalobos directly, posture shifting subtly, desde passive defensive stance towards something more commanding, subtle transformation de presence, que people con actual authority could project when they chose to stop hiding it. Dr. Villalobos, you're absolutely correct que I'm not patient here, she had begun, voice calm pero carrying unmistakable edge de authority. También correct que I'm not family member de patient currently receiving care. You're certainly correct que I'm not, como you so charitably suggested, homeless person desde street without money para bus fare. Había reached into her warm backpack, incongruously humble container para what she was about to reveal. Había pulled out simple leather card holder, not expensive designer brand leather pero just plain genuine leather, que had probably costado maybe couple $100, serviceable pero not fancy. Had extracted business card desde it con deliberate slowness, creating moment de suspense. My name is Sofía Mariana Castellanos Vargas, she had announced clearly, extending card toward Dr. Villalobos, holding it where he would have to take it, y I am propietaria de este hospital, como en literally owner. This building, this institution, this business, belongs to me personally. You, Dr. Villalobos, technically work para mí. En ese punto todo cambió, complete absolute silence, había fallen over entire area como if someone had pressed mute button in reality itself. Every person within hearing distance, nurses paused mid-conversation, patients being helped by staff stopped moving, administrative personnel at nearby desk turned toward scene, everyone frozen and momente shocked processing the what had just been said. Dr. Villalobos had reached out automatically to take card she was extending, had brought it to face level to read, hands visibly shaking slightly as he processed text, printed in simple but elegant font, and high-quality cardstock read, Sofía Mariana Castellanos Vargas, Presidenta y Propietaria Principal Grupo Médico San Rafael, followed por contact information including office phone y email address. His face had gone completely absolutely pale, all color draining desde features and literally visible wave, como blood rushed away desde surface vessels responding to shock, y sudden spike in cortisol y adrenaline que body released in response to recognizing serious threat to social status y career. Had looked up desde carpo Sofía, con expression mixing disbelief, horror, desperate hope, que botis was somehow joke o mestrancer deng, composed Dr. Salazar searching for contradiction or clarification, saw only grave serious expression confirming that yes, this was real, looked back down at car como if hoping words printed there might have changed, had not changed, reality reasserting itself stubbornly. Dr. Villalobos, Dr. Salazar had interjected, voice formal pero carrying note de something approaching satisfaction, porque he frankly had never particularly liked Dr. Villalobos, quien despite technical skills had reputation para arrogance y disrespect toward subordinates. Permítame make formal introduction. Esta es indeed señorita Sofía Castellanos. She is propietaria of this hospital specifically plus entire Grupo Médico San Rafael que includes 5 major hospitals throughout República Mexicana, 2 en Ciudad de México, 1 en Monterrey, 1 en Guadalajara, 1 en Querétaro, employing total de aproximadamente 5,000 personnel, generating an annual revenue exceeding 3,000 millones de pesos.
Beside father expanded original hospital en 1960.
She assumed ownership y control the company, following her father's unexpected passing hace 3 years ago at age 25. She is, technically speaking, su ultimate, had paused to let information sink completely into Dr. Villalobos' shocked consciousness before continuing.
She also, aunque esto might surprise you given her current attire, holds graduate degree desde Harvard Business School completed during 2 years immediately following father's death, plus completed pre-medical education at Stanford donde graduated con honors, aunque ultimately chose business management path rather than practicing medicine. So además de being your employer, she's also mejor educated than majority of physicians in this staff including yourself. Dr. Villalobos had open mouth, closed it again without words emerging, looking like fish pulled desde water gasping for oxygen, had tried again. Yo no sabía, had stammered completely unable to form coherent sentences, social conditioning the entire life telling him he should be respectful to person de such obvious wealthy power, pero conflicting violently con previous several minutes, donde he had treated the same person with absolute contempt. Por supuesto you didn't know, Sofía había responded, voice still calm pero now carrying unmistakable edge, speaking clearly enough that her words would carry to all staff members who had gathered at safe distance, some pulling out phones probably to text colleagues about drama unfolding porque news like this spread faster than virus. Because you made instant comprehensive judgments about me purely based on superficial external appearance. Because you saw worn inexpensive clothing you immediately assumed I must be poor person without resources, y therefore without rights to occupy space, que wealthy people use. Because para you apparently, human worth y dignity están determined exclusively por cost de clothing someone wears, y visible markers de economic status rather than por their character, their capabilities, their actual identity as humans deserving basic respect. Had paused, letting words resonate, watching his face cycle through emotions, shock, embarrassment, fear, desperately searching for excuse or explanation que might minimize damage. Espera un momento, no te pierdas este detalle. Permítame explain something important about assumptions y appearances. Dr. Villalobos, Sofía had continued, voice taking on slightly different tone, less personal anger, y more educational, como profesor delivering important lecture. Yes, I'm wearing extremely inexpensive clothing today. These jeans probably costaron around 300 pesos several years ago. Esta camiseta vino en 3-pack, para maybe 200 pesos total. Esta sudadera was even cheaper, tal vez 150 pesos. These shoes I purchased at Tianguis para about 250 pesos. Total value de everything I'm currently wearing, if you added up original purchase prices, probably doesn't exceed 1,000 pesos total. Less than cost de su stethoscope, fraction de cost de su watch, utterly insignificant amount compared to su daily clothing budget. I do this deliberately, purposefully, not because I cannot afford better clothing. Creemos what? I could literally walk into Louis Vuitton boutique in Polanco y buy entire inventory multiple times over without making remotely noticeable impact in my financial position. Lo hago porque when I inherited this business desde my father hace 3 years at age 25, faced con daunting responsibility de suddenly running major healthcare company con thousands de employees, y tens of thousands de patients depending on quality de your services, I made conscious strategic decision, que I wanted to truly understand como our hospitals actually functioned at every level, wanted to understand experiences de staff across all income levels, not just physicians y administrators, pero también nurses, technicians, janitors, cafeteria workers, everyone. That specifically, wanted to understand barriers que prevented ordinary working class y middle class people desde accessing quality healthcare, wanted to observe directly como people con obvious wealth were treated, versus people who appeared to have limited resources, wanted to see if there were systematic differences, and respect attention care quality based in visible socioeconomic status of patients. So multiple días each month, typically 2 or 3 días monthly, I come to wonder our hospitals dressed exactly como you see me now, dressed deliberately como someone desde working class or lower middle class would dress if they were working minimum wage job, if they were struggling financially, if buying new clothes was luxury they couldn't afford. I observe, I watch carefully como different people are treated. I pay attention to whether security guards treat everyone con same basic courtesy, or whether they're more likely to stop and question people who look poor. I notice whether medical staff spend same amount of time explaining diagnoses and treatment options to patients who arrive in expensive cars, versus patients who arrive in public transportation. I observe whether receptionists speak on same respectful tone to obviously wealthy patients, versus obviously working class patients. In what I have learned durante 3 years of these periodic observations, as honestly both enlightening and frequently disturbing. He watched security guards be physically rough con delivery workers pero deferential to point to servility, con executives in expensive suits. He's seen nurses provide noticeably more attentive, compassionate care to patients in private rooms versus patients in shared rooms despite both groups being entitled to same care standards. He witnessed physicians like yourself spending 45 comprehensive minutes con wealthy patients asking detailed questions, he thoroughly explaining every aspect of treatment, entonces rushing through appointments con middle-class patients in 16 hurried minutes barely making eye contact. He now today,
I have directly personally experienced senior physician on staff, highly trained educated professional, quien should absolutely know better, verbally attacking someone porque he assumed basándose purely in appearance, que she was poor y therefore didn't belong here, treating her con open contempt, threatening to have her forcibly removed for security, all without knowing single thing about who she actually was, what legitimate reason she might have para being here, whether she might be visiting family member, quien was patient, whether she might be delivery person with legitimate business, anything. Had turned slightly to address not just Dr. Villalobos but a broader audience, the staff, quien were watching. Este type de behavior, making assumptions about people's worth based in their appearance, treating people differently based in perceived economic status, showing respect solo to those who display visible markers de wealth. This is exactly opposite the values que my family established cuando founded this institution. Yes, somos privado hospital que charges substantial fees porque providing world-class medical care genuinely requires expensive equipment, highly trained personnel, premium facilities, all of which cost enormous amounts to acquire and maintain. Hospital como this costs over 20 million pesos monthly to operate. Those costs must be recovered through patient fees if institution is to remain financially sustainable.
Pero charging high fees para services, porque that's economic reality, the providing quality healthcare, does not mean we treat patients or visitors differently based on their apparent ability to pay. Every human who enters these doors, whether they're billionaire or minimum wage worker, whether they're wearing Gucci or worn jeans, desde tianguis, deserves exact same basic respect y dignity. That's not just nice sentiment. That's fundamental ethical principle que medical profession supposedly embraces, que Hippocratic tradition emphasizes, que any decent society should practice. Had focused back on Dr. Villalobos specifically, your behavior today was inexcusable, not just inappropriate, not just unprofessional, pero ethically wrong y revealing the attitude problema that extends beyond this single incident. If you treat person you believe to be poor con such open contempt, I have to wonder cómo you treat patients who appear working class cuando they come para consultations, whether you provide them con same thorough explanations y careful attention que you provide to obviously wealthy patients, whether you recommend same treatment protocols, or whether you make cost-based calculations about what treatment someone like that can afford. Dr. Villalobos had been sweating visibly, face alternating entre pale y flushed, clearly understanding severity the situation, clearly realizing his career was potentially online, had attempted to speak, Señorita Castellanos, I am deeply, profoundly sorry. There is simply no excuse whatsoever para my behavior. If you would permit me opportunity to explain context, there's nothing meaningful to explain. Sofia had cut him off firmly. Your words were perfectly clear. You stated explicitly que you believe people without apparent wealth don't belong in your hospital. You attempted publicly to humiliate someone into leaving purely porque her appearance suggested she was poor. You revealed attitude que medical care quality access should somehow differ based on patients' visibly economic status. Those beliefs represent fundamental misunderstanding de what healthcare professionals' ethical obligations actually are. Esas attitudes are exactly opposite the values this institution is supposed to embody. Yes, we're private hospital charging market rates para services, pero we treat every patient, every visitor, every person who enters these buildings con identical respect y dignity regardless de whether they're paying cash, using premium insurance, receiving charity care, whatever circumstances, that's non-negotiable principle. Dr. Salazar had interjected carefully, clearly trying to balance entre supporting rightful anger the owner con practical concern about losing skilled surgeon. Señorita Castellanos, if I may, Dr. Villalobos certainly behaved inexcusably today, no question. Pero is also highly skilled orthopedic surgeon con excellent patient outcomes statistically. Perhaps severe disciplinary action combined con mandatory retraining regarding cultural sensitivity, professional ethics, y appropriate conduct would be measured appropriate response rather than termination. We've invested considerably in his training. Patients appreciate his technical skills. Sofia had considered carefully before responding, deliberately taking time to think rather than reacting purely desde anger. Dr. Salazar, I appreciate que you're attempting to protect valuable staff member y maintain surgical capacity. You're correct que from technical standpoint, Dr. Villalobos has strong record. I've personally reviewed his patient outcome statistics monthly como parte de standard quality oversight. Pero technical competence alone is utterly insufficient para being truly good physician. Bedside manner, empathy, fundamental respect para patients regardless de their background. Treating all humans con dignity. Esas qualities are equally critical to quality healthcare como technical surgical skills. Had turned back to address Dr. Villalobos directly. Here's what's going to happen. Durante that suspension period, you will complete mandatory comprehensive training program on cultural competency, unconscious bias recognition, y mitigation, y professional medical ethics que our Human Resources Department administers. Additionally, you will complete minimum 25 hours de community service volunteering at either IMSS or ISSSTT public hospital facility, donde you can observe firsthand cómo dedicated physicians provide compassionate quality care con dramatically limited resources to diverse patient populations, hopefully gaining some perspective y humility. Después completing both training requirements y community service hours to satisfaction de HR department, you will have personal meeting directly con me, donde I will evaluate whether you have genuinely learned desde this experience, whether you have developed actual understanding de why your behavior was problematic beyond merely wanting to avoid further punishment, whether you're capable de treating all patients con appropriate respect regardless de their economic status. If I'm satisfied después de evaluation que you've genuinely grown como persona y profesional, I'll permit your return to clinical practice here bajo probationary status. If I'm not convinced de genuine change, I will terminate your employment contract y you can seek position elsewhere. Are these terms completely clear? Dr. Villalobos had nodded vigorously multiple times, relief visible that he wasn't being fired outright. Perfectly crystal clear, Señorita Castellanos. Y again, I cannot adequately express how deeply sorry I am. My behavior was completely inexcusable. I will absolutely complete all requirements y demonstrate genuine change. Words are comparatively easy. Sofia had responded dismissively. Actual sustained behavioral change is dramatically harder. Time will reveal whether you're capable the latter. Until then, report to HR within 1 hour para beginning suspension procedures. You're receiving information about mandatory training. You're dismissed. Dr. Villalobos had practically fled, desperate to escape situation, his 2 colleague physicians following quickly, all 3 disappearing rapidly down corridor. No lo vas a creer, pero Sofia had then addressed broader audience, the staff members who had witnessed confrontation. This message applies to everyone working in any capacity at any their facilities, desde physicians to nurses, to administrative personnel to environmental services, workers to cafeteria staff. Every single person represents our institutional values to patients y public, y our core values are respect para every individual regardless the background, compassionate care para every patient regardless the payment source, y commitment to medical excellence accessible to whoever genuinely needs it within practical limits the resources. If those values don't resonate con you, if you believe deep down que some people are inherently more valuable or deserving than others based on wealth or class or any other superficial external marker, then this is genuinely not right workplace environment para you. I would honestly prefer smaller staff with correct values than larger staff, donde some members routinely treat people poorly. Additionally, effective immediately we're establishing new hospital-wide policy. All staff at every level will receive mandatory training quarterly sobre unconscious bias recognition, cultural competency, y standards para professional respectful conduct. This isn't optional suggestion, this is requirement. Failure to complete required training or demonstrated bias in behavior toward patients or colleagues, based on race, class, gender, ethnicity, disability, any protected characteristic, any of those will be grounds para disciplinary action up to including immediate termination. Clear? Murmurs de agreement, desde assembled staff, several nurses nodding approval, one saying audibly, finally someone is addressing esto properly. Sofia había then been escorted por Dr. Salazar to her conference room, where her originally scheduled meeting would occur. Actual purpose de her visit today beyond conducting routine undercover observation, había been quarterly executive review meeting con senior management team to discuss operational metrics, patient satisfaction survey results, financial performance across all facilities, planned capital improvements, strategic initiatives, all the routine business de running multi-billion peso healthcare enterprise. Pero news de what had occurred in corridor had spread through 8-story hospital con remarkable viral speed. Dentro de 30 minutes after confrontation, seemingly everyone working in entire building knew que owner had been insulted by arrogant physician, had revealed identity, had suspended him on spot, whole incident becoming instant legend within institution. Staff reaction throughout hospital had been overwhelmingly positive, almost celebratory. Many nurses y support staff had apparently personally experienced similar condescending attitude desde Dr. Villalobos previously, pero hadn't felt empowered to complain formally, knowing que physicians typically held more institutional power within hospital hierarchy than nurses did. Their complaints would likely be dismissed or minimized. Story: the wealthy owner who periodically walked around disguised como poor person specifically to catch problematic behavior, y who had personally experienced, y confronted physician showing his true prejudice colors became narrative, que validated many people's experiences, y gave them hope que maybe institutional culture really would change. Durante quarterly executive management review meeting, approximately 1 hour después,
Corridor incident, when senior leadership team was assembled, Chief Financial Officer, quien managed financial operations, Chief Nursing Officer, quien oversaw all nursing staff, Chief of Medical Staff, quien coordinated physician activities, varios department heads representing different operational areas. Sofia had taken time specifically to address what had occurred. What happened earlier today, in third floor corridor, is perfect illustration, de exactly why I periodically dress modestly. You observe our facilities desde perspective de ordinary working person, rather than desde elevated position de owner. We can review all the patient satisfaction surveys we want, analyze all the quantitative metrics, but this formal assessment tools primarily capture feedback, desde people who feel socially empowered to complain, who understand systems, who believe their complaints will be taken seriously. Many people, especially those desde lower income backgrounds, or those who feel medically vulnerable, don't complain even cuando genuinely treated poorly, porque they assume nothing will change, porque they're grateful to receive any care at all, porque they don't want to be seen as troublemakers, who might receive even worse treatment subsequently. My informal undercover observations walking through our hospitals, dressed como working class person, have consistently revealed patterns to differential treatment que formal surveys y metrics completely miss. We absolutely must address these cultural issues systematically, porque they reflect deeper problems, not merely isolated incidents con individual bad apples. Culture is created and maintained through countless daily interactions, through what behavior is tolerated versus corrected, through who gets rewarded versus disciplined. She had then outlined her plans for a comprehensive cultural reform program throughout hospital group, over siguiente full year. Sofia had personally championed and overseen implementation to extensive reforms throughout entire 5-hospital system, based partly on what she had learned from multiple undercover observation visits, but are dramatically accelerated and expanded based in incident. Conductor Villalobos, mandatory quarterly training para all staff, regardless de position, covering cultural competency, recognition de unconscious bias, strategies para mitigating bias, respectful treatment standards para patients y visitors. Training wasn't generic online module que people click through mindlessly, sino rather intensive, interactive workshops led por professional diversity training consultants, quien used case studies, role-playing exercises, small group discussions to force genuine engagement y self-reflection. Implementation to completely anonymous feedback system, donde patients, visitors, y staff could report instances to disrespectful treatment or bias without any fear of retaliation. Reports were reviewed weekly per dedicated committee, reporting directly to Sofia, quien investigated credible complaints thoroughly. You recommended appropriate disciplinary responses, ranging desde additional training to formal warnings to termination depending on severity. Module revision to physician compensation structure throughout group, par explicitly include patient satisfaction scores, y demonstrated respectful conduct, como meaningful components de overall evaluation. Previously physician compensation had been based almost exclusively in technical metrics like procedure volume, surgical outcomes, research productivity, now additionally incorporated how patients rated interpersonal aspects to their care, including perceptions to respect, listening, time spent, thoroughness to explanations, regular utilization to trained mystery patient evaluators, quien post como patients desde various socioeconomic backgrounds, well-dressed appearing wealthy versus modestly dressed appearing working class, y systematically rated quality the care received from initial reception through discharge, specifically documenting any observable differential treatment based on apparent economic status. Establishment de robust partnership program con EMSs y ISS de public hospitals, donde San Rafael physicians voluntarily rotated through public facilities, several días quarterly, both maintaining broad clinical skills treating diverse patient populations, but more importantly gaining direct exposure to realities to practicing medicine, con dramatically limited resources, understanding challenges faced for both physicians y patients and public system, significant expansion de hospital's charitable care program, beyond previous token efforts, increasing funding substantially, so approximately 10% de total operational budget was allocated specifically to providing free or heavily subsidized care para patients who genuinely couldn't afford treatment, but needed it, conformalized application process, y financial screening to ensure resources went to truly needy, not merely to those seeking discounts. These changes understandably hadn't been universally popular within organization. Several senior physicians quien strongly disliked new accountability mechanisms para interpersonal behavior, y who resented being evaluated on anything beyond technical competence, had resigned, some moving to other private hospitals, donde traditional hierarchical culture still completely dominated. Chief Financial Officer had warned repeatedly que expanded charitable care program would negatively impact profit margins significantly, requiring offsetting revenue increases elsewhere or acceptance to lower returns. Pero Sofia had remained absolutely firm. This business was originally founded por my grandfather in 1960s con explicit mission de providing excellent medical care to Mexican families who could afford private services. Yes, somos profit-seeking private institution que requires financial sustainability
responsibility per continuing operations, pero we're not purely profit-maximizing enterprise, treating healthcare como commodity. We're healthcare providers con genuine social responsibility. Podemos simultaneously be financially stable, whilst also being ethical employer y compassionate care provider. Those goals are not mutually exclusive, if managed thoughtfully. Resultados over first full year after reforms had actually validated her approach, contrary to skeptics' predictions. Despite initial concerns, overall financial performance had actually modestly improved, rather than declined, porque enhanced reputation specifically per treating everyone respectfully had attracted more patients, particularly expatriate families, y diplomatic personnel, quien specifically sought hospitals con demonstrated commitment to dignity y cultural sensitivity, given increasingly diverse global population. Staff retention had improved dramatically, especially among nursing staff y support personnel, quien reported feeling more valued y respected. Most importantly, from healthcare quality standpoint, patient satisfaction scores had increased substantially across all facilities, not just for obviously wealthy patients, but regarding Dr. Villalobos specifically, Avia completed mandatory training, apparently genuinely engaged, rather than merely going through motions perfunctorily, had spent his required volunteer hours at notoriously overcrowded IMS Hospital in Ciudad Nezahualcóyotl serving working-class communities, apparently having genuine perspective-shifting experience, watching dedicated physicians treat literally hundreds of patients daily, con tiny fraction the resources available at San Rafael, seeing patients who had waited hours for brief consultations receiving care, con same dedication y professionalism despite impossible working conditions, had approached his formal reinstatement evaluation meeting, con Sofia approximately 1 month después, initial incident, con what appeared to be genuine humility y insight, rather than merely performing contrition.
Señorita Castellanos, I want to thank you sincerely para not terminating my employment immediately, porque honestly I completely merited immediate dismissal based purely on my behavior. This past few weeks have been genuinely humbling educational experience that I needed. Watching physicians at IMS facility treat patients con same level de care y dedication con which I treat mine, excepto they see 50 or 60 patients donde I see maybe 10, using equipment that's 15 or 20 years old, donde I have access to latest technology, earning salaries that are literal fraction de what I make, really forced me to confront what privilege bubble I've been living within. I can't undo cruel words I spoke to you, pero I can absolutely commit to being substantially better physician going forward, not just technically skilled surgeon performing procedures competently, pero también compassionate practitioner quien treats cada patient como individual human being deserving respect y dignity, regardless de their circumstances or appearance. Sofia had evaluated his apparent sincerity carefully through extended conversation probing his understanding, eventually deciding to permit conditional reinstatement. Words remain comparatively easy even now. Dr. Villalobos, sustained behavioral change over extended time is dramatically harder. I'm reinstating you conditionally with absolute understanding que any future complaints whatsoever about disrespectful treatment, the patients or staff, will result in immediate termination sin any additional chances. This is your single opportunity para redemption. Am I being completely clear? Perfectly clear, he had agreed earnestly. Over subsequent months and then years following reinstatement, Dr. Villalobos had apparently genuinely reformed his behavior, based on multiple forms de feedback. Patient satisfaction scores, specifically mentioning him by name, had become notably more positive, with patients commenting specifically on his patient's thoroughness, respectful manner. Nurses who worked closely con him in surgical settings reported that he treated support staff dramatically más respectfully than previously, actually learning their names, thanking them for assistance, treating them como valued colleagues rather than invisible servants. Appeared to be legitimate case de someone genuinely learning desde serious mistake rather than merely avoiding future punishment through careful performance. 5 años después, dramatic corridor incident, Hospital San Rafael y brother Grupo Médico San Rafael had become somewhat famous within Mexican medical community, not solely for clinical excellence, which continued at highest levels pero additionally for progressive workplace culture. He demonstrated commitment to treating all patients, his staff con genuine dignity regardless the background. Sofia's distinctive leadership approach, maintaining absolutely uncompromising standards para both medical excellence y ethical conduct, had become minor case study discussed in healthcare management programs at universities, written about in medical journals, featured in healthcare administration conferences. Durante National Healthcare Conference, celebrating innovations in hospital management, donde Sofia had been invited como keynote speaker, addressing audience de approximately 350 y topics on el hasonteji, Osarkara executive de Dr. Villalobos incident explicitly, using it como illustrative example de broader points about organizational culture y values in healthcare delivery, and speaks of Ledaco to Bethumaka. 5 años ago, senior physician in my staff publicly insulted y attempted to remove me from my own hospital based purely on my clothing. He didn't recognize me porque I deliberately dress modestly several días monthly, specifically para observing how staff treat people when they believe nobody important is watching. That incident, while personally unpleasant, revealed several critical truths about healthcare delivery that formal quality metrics often completely miss. First truth, socioeconomic bias in healthcare is absolutely pervasive, affecting who receives respectful treatment, who gets thorough explanations, who receives physicians' complete attention versus rushed care. Second, formal feedback mechanisms systematically miss enormous amounts, porque people quien feel powerless generally don't complain. Third, changing institutional culture requires sustained comprehensive effort involving training, accountability, consequences, sustained attention desde leadership, not merely words about values. Most critically, technical clinical excellence alone is utterly insufficient para quality healthcare. Physician can be brilliantly skilled surgeon, technically, pero if treats patients disrespectfully, if harbors prejudice, if provides differential care quality based purely on patient's apparent wealth or social status, entonces, that person is not truly excellent physician regardless the impressive technical capabilities. Durante Q&A session following presentation, attendee had asked challenging question, pero some critics argue quite reasonably que private hospitals inherently y unavoidably serve only wealthy populations, y therefore have fundamentally no legitimate standing to lecture anyone about equity or fairness. How do you respond to that structural critique? Sophia had nodded, acknowledging reasonably validity. The question, it's absolutely fair point. Private hospitals like mine do predominantly serve people con sufficient financial resources para paying premium fees charged. That's unavoidable economic reality, the business model. Within that reality, though, podemos still commit meaningfully to treating cada patient con full dignity. Podemos ensure que patient paying partly through employer insurance receives identical quality attention como patient paying completely out of pocket desde personal wealth. Podemos train all staff systematically to recognize y counteract their unconscious biases. Podemos allocate substantial resources specifically para charitable care programs serving those who genuinely can't pay. Perfect equity in healthcare delivery throughout entire society would require complete transformation the Mexican medical system, ensuring universal access to quality care regardless the ability to pay, worthy aspirational goal pero requiring massive political will y fiscal resources far beyond what any individual private institution can possibly provide. Meanwhile, within sphere we control, podemos ensure our own institutions operate as ethically y compassionately as possible. It's not sufficient para resolving systemic societal problems, pero it's necessary preliminary step. 7 años después, original corridor incident, Sofia still periodically, typically 2 o 3 días each month, dressed in same deliberately humble worn clothing, walked through hospital facilities observing, checking whether cultural changes had genuinely taken root deeply, or whether old problematic patterns had quietly resumed, cuando nobody thought owner might be watching. Usually encontraba cultural genuinely improved, staff generally treating everyone con basic respect, patients across socioeconomic spectrum reporting feeling heard y valued, dramatically fewer complaints about differential treatment, pero occasionally still caught problematic incidents requiring intervention, constant reminder que cultural change required eternal vigilance, not merely initial policy changes eventually fading. In particular, afternoon 7 years después, original incident, Sofia había been walking through emergency department dressed como usual cuando accidentally overheard young resident physician speaking dismissively about patient, quien had been transferred desde public IMS hospital seeking second opinion, overhearing resident refer to patient como another IMS dump que probably no puede pay anyway. Sophia had immediately approached resident, had politely introduced herself using only first name without initially revealing identity or position, had asked resident to explain their comment. Resident, completely not recognizing her, had responded honestly, patients transferred desde IMS frequently can't afford tratamiento aquí, sometimes better para everyone, si just send them back rather than starting expensive workup they ultimately can't pay for. That's interesting perspective, Sophia had responded calmly. Tell me, when exactly did your medical school education teach you que healthcare decisions should be based primarily in patients' perceived ability to pay rather than in actual medical necessity? Resident había looked uncomfortable. Well, it's just practical consideration. It's not your consideration to make unilaterally, Sophia had interrupted sharply. Your job como physician is evaluate patient medically, y provide appropriate care based in their actual medical needs. Financial counseling y payment arrangements are separate departments' responsibility entirely. If patient genuinely cannot afford care, we have comprehensive charitable care programs specifically designed for exactly those situations. Pero making assumptions about patient finances, y using those assumptions to justify providing lesser quality care or no care, that's exactly type the socioeconomic bias we absolutely do not tolerate here. Had then revealed her actual identity, had required resident complete same intensive cultural competency training que Dr. Villalobos had completed años before, had made unmistakably clear que such attitudes were completely unacceptable, regardless of where resident had trained previously, or what they might have learned elsewhere about practical realities.
Incident served como reminder que cultural change was genuinely ongoing continuous process, not one-time achievement, que new staff constantly joined organization bringing whatever attitudes and biases they had absorbed elsewhere, que maintaining positive ethical cultural required constant vigilance y continuous reinforcement de values through both training y accountability.
Durante rare quiet evening at home, modest comfortable apartment in middle-class Narvarte neighborhood, despite easily being able to afford mansion in exclusive Las Lomas, another deliberate choice reflecting values about lifestyle y conspicuous consumption, Sofía reflected thoughtfully and journeyed desde that traumatic corridor confrontation 7 years before. Had inherited healthcare business at impossibly young age, 29 cuando beloved father had died completely unexpectedly desde massive heart attack, had been utterly overwhelmed initially por sudden responsibility de running major organization con thousands de employees y annual revenues exceeding 3 billion pesos, had seriously considered selling entire business to one and several large healthcare corporations, quien had immediately expressed strong acquisition interest offering very substantial sums. Pero ultimately ha decided to honor father's legacy through maintaining family ownership y founding values rather than cashing out. Father had been practicing physician himself before transitioning into hospital administration, had built business con genuine vision de providing excellent medical care whilst treating everyone, patients, staff, community, con dignity y respect. That vision had sometimes been imperfectly realized in daily practice, porque father had focused primarily in clinical excellence rather than explicitly in cultural issues, pero core values había been fundamentally sound. Sofía's distinctive contribution had been insisting systematically que those stated values be genuinely lived in practice, not merely rhetorically proclaimed, que they apply consistently at all organizational levels, not just selectively, que apparent conflicts entre financial success y ethical behavior were actually resolvable through thoughtful management rather than requiring abandonment of the ethics. Simple practice de periodically dressing como working class person y observing había proven surprisingly powerful diagnostic tool porque eliminated filtering y pretense when people thought nobody important was watching, they revealed their true characters y institutional cultural realities became visible or they were otherwise obscured por formal processes y official narrative. Incident con Dr. Villalobos 7 years before had been catalyst and pleasant confrontation que had forced systematic examination de values y practices throughout entire organization. In that sense, his cruel words had ultimately benefited institution tremendously porque had sparked necessary comprehensive reforms que almost certainly wouldn't have occurred otherwise, sin a precipitating y dramatic event. Sofía sometimes wondered thoughtfully que would have happened si she had been wearing business suit that particular day instead of humble worn clothes cuando had encountered Dr. Villalobos. Almost certainly would have been treated respectfully, would never have witnessed his underlying class bias, problematic cultural patterns would have continued unaddressed indefinitely. Which raised profound question. How many other institutions, hospitals, corporations, government agencies, schools, whatever, harbored similar biases y problematic culturas que remained conveniently hidden, porque people holding power never directly experienced being treated poorly, never personally witnessed how people con less power were routinely treated. Era question sin easy answer, pero informat Sofía's entire management philosophy, actively seek perspectives desde margins, not just desde center, deliberately observe desde unexpected angles, assumen que official narratives miss important truths, believe people cuando they describe experiences de disrespect, even cuando conflicts con institutional self-image, simple practice de occasionally wearing ropa total en 1,000 pesos, y observen había taught dramatically more about actual organizational functioning que endless formal reports or executive briefings ever could. Sometimes most profound insights genuinely come desde least expected sources, sometimes you need to see world desde radically different perspective para understanding what you've been systematically missing desde usual privilege vantage point. Y 7 years después, cada time Sofía pulled on those same deliberately humble war clothes, now even more worn, needing eventual replacement, y walked through hospital corridors, she remembered vividly Dr. Villalobos' intended cruel insult, no tienes ni para el autobús. Words intended como ultimate devastating insult, pero que had become valuable reminder de essential truth, external markers de wealth or poverty, success or struggle, power or powerlessness, all ultimately superficial meaningless, what genuinely mattered was character, values, integrity, como you treated people cuando thought nobody important was watching, whether lived ethical principles or merely spoke them conveniently. In that profound sense, humblest person in waiting room might possess far more genuine dignity que wealthiest physician in building. Woman in worn jeans, desde tianguis, might understand values más deeply que executive in $5,000 designer suit. Y sometimes propietaria multimillonaria understood her own institution dramatically better, cuando dressed como someone quien couldn't afford treatment, que cuando dressed como CAO. Esa era lesson worth remembering daily. Esta profunda historia nos recuerda que juicios basados puramente en apariencia externa, particularmente en marcadores superficiales de clase social como ropa, accesorios, estilo personal, son frecuentemente profundamente erróneos y revelan sustancialmente más sobre sesgos y prejuicios de persona quien juzga que sobre realidad actual de person being judged. Sofía representa líderes verdaderamente reflexivos, quienes deliberately seek perspectivas radicalmente diferentes desde sus usual privileges vantage points, quien usan su considerable power para address rather than perpetuate systemic inequities, quien insisten absolutely que valores declarados sean genuinely if not mere rhetorically stated. Su historia demuestra convincentemente que true character reveals it is definible en cómo tratamos personas cuando asumimos no hay consecuencias, y que sustainable institutional culture change requires sustained effort y visible leadership commitment desde very top de organización. Gracias por ver el vídeo y acompañarme. Si te ha gustado nos vemos en los comentarios. No olvides suscribirte al canal y activar las notificaciones.